Life.
Hi, and welcome to Seeds News, Episode 1. I'm Nyla, and today I am here with Joachim Stroh, who is leading the charge for the DHO or DO. Hi, Joachim, how are you?
Hey, Nyla, so glad to be here. Thank you for having me on your show. I think it's the very first one, right? I don't know. Have you
It
done
is.
this before? Cool.
I have not. So this is the maiden voyage. So let's dive right in. And
Sure.
first and foremost, tell me about Hypha and seeds and what the difference between Hypha and seeds is, the crucial difference.
Sure. That question comes up a lot, right? So we have Hypha, really sort of the organization, that's sort of the umbrella. I mean, Hypha, the word itself, if you look at that deeper, it's kind of related to mycelium. It's kind of the root network in the earth that's trying to connect a lot of things, right? And so that's really the idea of Hypha, right? So we are kind of a connector, a base, a soil to grow a lot of the activities and things and entities out of the ground, right? By building this. Versus seeds obviously is just not an organization, but really the entity that regenerates the currency, right? The enabler for building some of the value flows with the system. So Hypha really as an organization that creates a lot of things, and Hypha DAO, Hypha DO as we call it, is one of the entities that's under that umbrella, right, of Hypha.
So tell me about the DAO or the DO, what the difference between a DAO and a DO is.
Yeah, right. So DAOs, sounds interesting, sounds Eastern philosophy, the Taoism, right? But the DAO really started in, I think, 2016. There was the first instance created, right? And was a way to create a decentralized business model, right? And it was meant both for commercial and for non-commercial, non-profit enterprises, right? So the difference to traditional organizations is it's not only decentralized, but it's living on a second generation blockchain. At that time, it was Ethereum, right? And what they try to do is sort of wiping out the whole sort of management layer there. Can we decentralize this as much as possible and remove it entirely, right? So there's no board of directors, no groups, no CEO on top of this thing. It's just maintained by the different people, right? By the different smart contracts that are established, over time within this DAO construct, right? To me, that DAO was sort of the first experiment, right? How people are working together in these online virtual spaces, sort of coding all of these business rules. And this is also where I see that when going a bit too far into sort of saying code is law, right? Everything that we have is algorithmic. It is embedded in the code. And we really don't the notion of we don't need humans anymore in this space, right? Why if we have all the machines running this stuff, then take them out of the equation. That's, I think, why we started to look at this closer and said, well, DAO is a good concept. DAO in 2016, when it came up, was a great idea. It was sort of stateless, it was not tied to any particular nation state either, right? So at that moment, always, there's this gray area of where does it belong to, right? If it crosses boundaries, if it crosses borders, what are governance, saying about this, right? What kind of regulatory issues will come up with these DAO, right? And promptly, also in 2016, I think the same year it started, they crashed, right? So it was hacked, and it was delisted on Ethereum, and that caused some other issues like forking and all the bad stuff for the first generation of this DAO. Now, with the DHO, or the DO as we call it, so the H really is either human or holonic, right? So decentralized holonic structure or decentralized human organization. And the difference here is, let's pull the humans back into the decision process, right? Put them at the center. They're the ones who are guiding, and they're the ones who build all of these relationships inside this organization. So that is a critical piece for us to build that kind of DAO, right? I mean, we've learned a lot since then, right? It's a third generation blockchain now, so meaning it's much more energy efficient, right? you can uncouple it from larger networks and its subnets that you tap into. So a lot of positive things came out of the research and moving that kind of stack forward, right? And you're really going away from this idea of code is law, algorithmic design or geek design, right? That try to put everything into algorithms and try to solve it in ways that try to move and push the human out of the equation, right? I think we come a long way, and hopefully with this iteration here, we'll get to a place where everybody is comfortable using these kind of DAO technologies, right?
And that's the big difference, is the autonomous organization versus human organization. So the
Yes,
computer generated versus human generated.
exactly.
So then how does that shift affect team building? How does it affect organizations? How does it affect individuals and how they interact with this new decentralization?
Right. So, I mean, using that in a way that really can jumpstart your team. It can jumpstart your community. It can jumpstart your organization. What we're also building into this is sort of this holonic piece, right? That's leaning on some of the sociocratic structures. So these are ways of building organizations from the ground up, right? There's no hierarchy in there, right? There's no like top-down box, and then you have these subsequent boxes underneath, and they're all, vertical aligned and have these vertical command and control structures that does not exist in a holonic structure, right? Hence, we have this organic thing that grows and shrinks too, right? So if you feel like you have your team and you want to start something there's an important component, and the whole organization feels like, yes, we need to put some effort into that. We put some resources into that. You can do that, right? You can just create and start your circle. It's called a circle within the Solonic structure, right? Invite others, and then determine what kind of roles do you want to play, right, in this space. To me, the role is a fundamental aspect of this new decentralized human organization, because roles mean you're there for the longer term, right? You're committed to something there, right? I want to take on a role that helps people, developing some things in a developing country. I want to start a permaculture, center over here and see what I can do. What kind of role can I play in this within the DAO, right? So that's an important component. But there are other components too, right? We can talk about that a bit later, what we're planning to do in the future for the DAO, right? But right now, important piece is really, there's a team, you can create a circle, and within the circle, you have the ability to create roles and start to submit these contributions, right? Or claims, as we call them. So once you feel comfortable in a role, then you can get into, adjusting this role over time, right? It's I mean, a bit for newcomers, it might be a bit overwhelming. We saw that too, right? Because you suddenly have a whole bunch of roles here, right? And it's like becoming almost like a decentralized human resources function, right? This is HR here again, right? But it's not. It's decentralized HR, and HR should actually stand for human relations, right? Not human resources. That makes a lot more sense for me. So how do you make that decentralized, right? So how do you push these kind of roles to the edge that anybody can go in there, say, not only here's my circle, here's my team of people, but what kind of role do you want to shape up, right? So you can come up with your own idea of a role, really, right? And then reflect that with others, right? Again, this is a sort of an organization that bounces back on the membranes with others, right? So there are parent circles that might get involved because the role is too big, or it might have too big of an influence over the entire thing, right? So you want to, reflect and review that with as many people as you think you want to draw into this. And then it can grow, right? So it's like the organs in your body, right? So you can't just have an organ that suddenly pops out and does something else that, doesn't align with the rest of your internal system, right? Same thing here with the Solonic organization, right? You have to get a feel for, does that organ that we're creating now is helpful? Does it encourage, thriving of our organization and help us move along, right? That's so important.
So then if I understand correctly, everything is very, very flat. If everything is very flat, then how are decisions made, and who do you report to? Who's the boss? Who's creating the strategy, and who's deciding whether or not we go down this path or that path?
That's a good question. I mean, this goes into the whole notion of how do you govern, a lot of people? How do you make decisions in these spaces, in these new kinds of spaces, right? So governance is always about two things. It's about resilience, or really finding a balance between resilience and scalability, right? So resilience meaning, is each decision aligned, right? Are we okay that we don't have suddenly decisions being made that pushes the whole organization in the wrong direction, right? And or fractures the organization, right? So this resilience piece is an important one. And the other one, of course, is scalability, or efficiency, as it's sometimes called. Meaning, can we scale this up, right? Can we invite hundreds and thousands of people into the organization and suddenly decide on things, right? But obviously that doesn't work either, because you can't look at everything at once and you'll be stuck there for days just looking at all these proposals and seeing what kind of decisions we got to make. So what we do with the Decentralized Holonic Organization is provide context, right? Say these decisions are made, yes, but they're made within, say, your circle, your sub-circle, right? Or what we're starting to introduce now with the DAO is bioregions, right? So bioregion is just another context for me, right? So take bioregion Tamarindo in Costa Rica, right? So there's a small group of people wanting to build something, and they have a lot of decisions to make, right? So what they can do is they can take the DAO, right? Get an instance of that for Costa Rica, for Tamarindo, right? That's their context, that's their playground, that's their workspace, right? And then within that space, you now have the ability to say, okay, we need to propose some things, right? We have a project going on, we have a role going on, we have a lot of startups going on. We want to do something. So the context is that if they feel like, oh, this is getting too big, right? This is affecting maybe other provinces in Costa Rica, let's reach out to those groups. They may have their own DAO, right? They may have their own bioregional space, and they can now begin to sort of interact, right? So the whole idea and the notion of the DAO is this, what's called adjacent possible. So adjacent possible stands for, two entities getting closer to each other and feeling like, oh, there's some overlap, there's some commonality here, there's some things we can share, right? As soon as that happens, and you recognize, oh, there are people in that DAO that are working in the, same things, that same problems, same solution space that we are in, you begin to share and exchange information, kind of recipes, right? What have you done that worked? What can we do over here? And this kind of overlap is critical. It's really crucial to building a much stronger and tighter network to increase the resilience of this whole structure or construct, right? So that's an important piece here, to say, find this context, right? How can we work together within the context? And then if you feel like this is sort of bursting out of your context, out of your circle, right? Then let's bring in other people, right? You can do this through a variety of ways. For example, is you create specific roles within a circle, right? There's a circle lead, person who's trying to organize these things, not as a lead, as a manager, right? Top-down management again, but lead as someone who takes up some contextual leading, right? So some way of guiding everybody else and bringing everyone on the same page. That lead can be a role. Another one is a link role. And link roles are kind of embedded in multiple circles, right? They can be embedded in a parent circle that now communicates between the two, right? Has some ideas what's going on in the parent, and then can communicate and say, okay, that they're making some decisions that might affect you in this circle, right? Let's talk about it and bring you into the decision process, right? And then that'll move us forward. So that's kind of the structure piece in terms of what kind of methods are we using to make these actual decisions. There's a variety of tool sets available. We're using, again, I mentioned the third generation blockchain called Telos, and it has some beautiful, smart contract based decision tools that we're using to quickly come up with a way of, say, an 80-20 rule. We need 80% of people voting positively for a decision, and 20% need to participate, kind of a quota here, right? And we can leave that open for, let's say, a week, right? And after that week, we see how it stands, right? Do we have enough people who showed up to participate in the vote? Do we have enough positive votes, supporting that proposal? Then yes, that's it. We move on, right? As simple as that. And if not, then maybe that goes through a revision cycle, right? It gets modified, gets discussed again, and then you bring up the proposal in another stage. So there's some there are many ways actually to create these different decision methods. And we're just at the beginning of looking at alternative ways for decisions that are happening in bigger spaces. Like within the DAO, you have a very confined space, right? You have a team, you have a circle, there's a specific project, they're clear decisions. They're more like converging, right? So the idea here is really to move forward, to get into action and get something out of this. Versus in community spaces that are more open, it's more like diverging, right? So you want to open up the possibilities here and say, hey, what else is there that we have missed, right? Get some diverse opinion and meaning and perspectives in here. And then let's get into, okay, which one do we pick to move forward, right? This is a different way of decision making, a different way of governance, really, where you look more at assessments, right? At a sort of the emotional field too. How do people relate to that, right? Do they feel attracted to certain ways of solving problems, right? And that's happening now outside the DAO, right? That's more in the community space, in the wider bioregional construct, where you invite people into a larger playground. That's another project we're working on. Right now for the DAO, again, it's more the convergence and putting people into a solution track, right, to move that forward.
So in a normal organization that's centralized, everything would kind of like, if this someone over here has an idea, then you kind of go to the center and then it comes back out. And someone over here has an idea and it goes to the center and comes back out. But in the decentralized organization, if someone over here has an idea, they just talk to these people if it's relevant, and going through each other directly as opposed to through some kind of central person.
Yes, yes. I mean, that's exactly why some people who join this kind of environment the first time feel disoriented, feel strange. Who do I talk to? Who's the person in charge here, right? Well, there's no one really in charge. And then next question is, okay, if no one is in charge, then what can I do, right? I can't just come up with an idea and then push that through. Well, try it, right? Connect to other people, build these relationships, and see. Get really, the idea is getting the bigger picture first, right? Get your feel for what's happening in all these different spaces. That's another important piece we're putting into the DAO now, to sort of visualize the different bioregions, the different organizational structures that we have on a bigger map, right? So you can actually literally really navigate that map, zoom in, zoom out, see where are things happening, right? And then decide from there, maybe you want to join the guys in Costa Rica, right? They're working on some great stuff with Kate Barworth and donut economics. Fantastic. I want to join that group, right? Okay, dive in. Where's the DAO? Here you find the circles, here you find the team members, and here's where you can start looking for your own role, right? So that kind of zooming in and out is really important to find your way around, right? Because otherwise, it's new territory, really, right? I mean, we find ourselves, in defining what this all means. Right? What do I mean by decentralized something, right? I have to say, I distinguish between decentralized and distributed, right? So to me, these are two different aspects. Distributed is more agent-centric, right? It's more individual nodes and entities talking to each other, right? Like the internet is distributed, right? So there could be websites popping up anywhere. They are totally independent. Whatever they do, it's fine, right? And they communicate. They still, sense, exchange signals among each other, right? But it's very node and agent centric. Versus here in the decentralized world, it's more like hubs, right? So there are groups of people forming sort of these organizations, forming these entities, and they're interacting now with other entities in that space, right? So this is a bit more, I would say, hub and spoke and a different way of still grouping them together, finding the commonalities, right? And working together, co-creating a lot of stuff. So that's another big aspect of the DAO. It's really this co-creation of things. You're not alone anymore, right? It's not you joining the organization and you have a role. You sit in your box in your cubicle and that's your work. End of story, right? It's not, right? This is really saying, well, there are other people in the same space. You want to reach out to them and work together, co-create some stuff, co-visioning, create and design something together, right? And that's a challenge too, right? Besides this is all decentralized, stuff happening, how do you actually co-create stuff with others, and that's really difficult. And we're still finding the right tool sets, to sort of manage projects on that kind of level, to communicate with the different conferencing tools and chat channels we have, right? To align all of this. So that's just another big piece of the puzzle we're solving, trying to solve.
Well, it's a huge issue to tackle, and we all thank you so much for all of the work that you've already put into it. And very happy to co-create with you.
Thank you, Nina. Fantastic.
So we'll all be looking forward to the next time that you're a guest on Seeds News to talk to us about the future of the DHO and what additional tools and capabilities we've discovered and co-created.
Absolutely, looking forward. Maybe next time I can show you some more screens. How does it actually work? When you dive into the DHO, right?
Absolutely,
And where we're
absolutely.
taking that next with a roadmap and stuff. Cool.
Oh my goodness, the future, the sky is not even the limit. The cosmos are the limit. So thank you very much, Joachim. That's all for today's Seeds News. Over and sprout.